right? Am I got that right? I think 2.5 hours ago for you. Are you still not at home, Benjamin? Are you still on vacation?
No. That didn't end up going.
Oh,
Shit.
what the fuck? Are you? What's
It's been
wrong?
sick a weekend. Oh no, it's a sick a weekend.
You have the corona.
No, I don't. No, it's
Official, unofficial, official, unofficial, official, unofficial. It's definitely not official. Official, unofficial, official, unofficial.
Hello and welcome to the official unofficial review of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I'll be your host today, Ben at Please Be Excited, and with me in the top left-hand corner, we have the one, the only, the editor extraordinaire. It's Al Tribesman.
Hi, Ben.
Woo!
How's it going?
What's up? How you doing, Al?
Not too bad. How are you?
That's good. Good, buddy. I've just decided I'm going to try new nicknames for you every week. We'll see if one sticks. Yeah. We'll see how we go. And in the top right-hand corner, it's who's that girl? It's Erica.
What's up, Ben?
What's up? How you doing?
I am so fantastic. How are you?
I'm great. Love the picture of Jeff Goldblum in the background.
Thank you.
That's awesome. And today we have a very special guest in the bottom left-hand corner. We have Ryan Colt Levy. Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the show.
It is my pleasure. Hi, guys. Thank you so much, Ben. This is going to be so much fun.
That's going to be a blast. That's great. Well, let's get into it, shall we? Now, Erica's going to be doing all the heavy lifting this episode, all the segments. So thank you so much, Erica.
You're welcome.
It's only her favorite movie, so
It
it's always-
is.
Exactly.
Favorite movie.
Spoilers.
Easy to just put all the work on her. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you want to tell us a
won't
little bit about the movie, Erica?
Absolutely. First, so we won't be having our favorite segment of Has Erica Seen This Movie this time because obviously my favorite movie of all time. So Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, released February 12th, 2004, grossed at the box office $34.1 million. Not bad, not bad. Directed by Michel Gondry, known also for Be Kind, Rewind, and has also worked with such musical acts as Daft Punk, Radiohead, Bjork, Beck, The Chemical Brothers, The White Stripes, and many, many more. So those are some pretty big names. And written by Charlie Kaufman, known for Being John Malkovich, and Adaptation, and also Michel Gondry. So pretty big names in the cast as well here. Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet, Tom Wilkinson, Elijah Wood, Mark Ruffalo, and Kirsten Dunst. This movie always blows my mind, though, that Mark Ruffalo's in it, because I'll see him and I'm like, that's not Mark Ruffalo. And I'm like, oh, but wait, yeah, it is. It is Mark Ruffalo. And it always blows my mind seeing a young Mark Ruffalo in this movie.
That was the first time I feel like most of us were introduced to him. I remember him sticking out like when I saw that movie in theaters, and I was like, who's this guy? He's amazing.
Right?
Like,
No, he did a fantastic job in this movie. He was wonderful. And I think now just knowing him from seeing him in so many other things, it's just crazy to go back and be like, wow, that's really him. But yeah, he was just fantastic in this movie. So just to give you a quick plot summary of this movie, we start Joel Barish, played by Jim Carrey, kind of just a bit of an emotionally withdrawn guy, and his, girlfriend Clementine, played by Kate Winslet, and she's a bit of a free spirit, if you will, kind of an opposite attract kind of deal with those two. When they first meet, they don't really realize it, but they were former lovers. And after a nasty fight, Clementine decided to have her memories of the relationship erased. When Joel finds out about this, he is devastated, goes to the doctor that Clementine went to, decides to have the same procedure done. But while he's unconscious, Joel has second thoughts and decides he wants to keep his memories of Clementine. So much of this film takes place inside Joel's mind while he's having this procedure done, and tries to find ways to preserve his memories of Clementine. So Patrick, played by Elijah Wood, and Stan, played by the one and only Mark Ruffalo, they're the ones trying to erase his memories. We watch, their relationship kind of go in reverse while they're erasing his mind. And the memories are slowly erased while he tries his best to resist and hide inside his mind with Clementine. So towards the end, he wakes up and we find Clementine again because she whispers to him in that scene, "Meet me in Montauk." He ends up running off after his memories are erased and he finds her again. They kind of have this little bit of a moment together, meet back at her place, and they kind of start to have their relationship start to rekindle a little bit when they find this envelope and put this tape in Joel's car where it's Clementine's words playing that she wants to have Joel erased from her mind. Obviously, he freaks out a little bit because he's like, what is this? This is some kind of joke. She's like, no, it's not. He drives off, goes and finds the same thing over at his place with him saying pretty much the same thing, that he wants to have her erased from his mind. And she shows back up and they kind of talk it out and decide they want to try again. So that's basically the long and short of the movie. So want to dive in and kind of hear your thoughts. So Al, I know that this movie means a lot to you. So why don't you tell me kind of what you think?
I love this movie. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. I adore everything, just the way it's shot, the way it's written, the way, even the music. It's John Bryan, who you might know from Punch Drunk Love is where I know him from. I Heart Huckabees.
Yeah.
Yes. Monday is the track from I Heart Huckabees that I listen to over and over again.
And he also produced
Ben,
a lot of Fiona Apple's music.
Nice. I did not know that.
If you listen to her, you'll notice the arrangements are very John Bryan-y.
That's so cool. Ben will know him from the other guys. So
yes, slightly
yeah,
different.
But I've been a fan of Michel Gondry's music videos, and I've been a fan of Jim Carrey's old stuff. And this movie came at a time in my life where I needed it. And there's so much to be said about this, but this is what I'll just say for now. I adore this movie. Everything about it is wonderful.
I love that you bring up the music, because one of the things I find so interesting about the music in this movie is when we first are introduced to Joel and Clementine, the first time that they speak to each other in the train, we notice the music is playing while they're speaking and it stops when they're not. And I love that part just because it builds that tension when they're not speaking to each other. And there's just something about that. And I don't know if it's just that it's not tension, but it's just something about the feeling that it brings, because that just those lighthearted notes that just play while they're speaking to each other is incredible. And I love it so very much. It's fantastic.
And that's throughout the whole movie, even the dream sequences, like the echoes and like the faces being distorted, all of that stuff is just like it just puts you in that atmosphere where it's just absolutely delightful.
It is. It's great. Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, wow. I mean, this movie it's for me, it's perfect. And that's such a rare, like, I never say that. It's actually crazy because I didn't look up the date. But I forgot this came out on my birthday. So
awesome.
It's extra surreal. But yeah, this movie came out on my birthday, and I was a teen when this came out. I was in a relationship at the time, very much unsure of, all the things. It's like all the feelings, especially then. And yeah, this movie absolutely put me in a whole other like stratosphere of thought and emotion. And again, the music was like the first thing I wanted to touch on. I immediately went out and bought the soundtrack when it came out because I felt like every single note spoke to me, whether it was somber or, funny or whatever. Every single song had such power and such a narrative of life. And yeah, all the pieces just work together so perfectly in this movie. The writing, the direction, like everything. I mean, you were just touching on it, Al. It's just like it's like a puzzle piece with all these different things that if any other team were to try and put something like this together, it could so colossally fail 1,000 different ways. And like I remember seeing the trailer for this movie. I don't remember what I was seeing at the time, but I remember the trailer, and they had the Mr. Blue Sky from ELO was like the song cut, and it was just this perfect, quirky, like even the trailer was perfect. Everything about it was like, I don't know what this is, but I understand I need it. And Jim Carrey is, even though there's nothing about him that's like he's not trying to change his appearance, he's almost unrecognizable because his personality is so internalized and so different. It's so tender and it's so stripped away that it's such a it's so not what we're used to from him. And I think it was
Mhm.
like so transportive. And even watching it again, like you forget that you're watching him. And he's one of those actors that sometimes, you'll watch his movies and you're like, I'm watching Jim Carrey, and it's great. But this was just Joel.
Yep. And
Not to cut you off, but like this has been done in The Cable Guy and then again in Man on the Moon, but not to this extent.
No, you're absolutely right, because those are the movies where when he's allowed to commit. There's also another film called I Love You, Philip Morris that he did with
Yes.
Ewan McGregor. That's phenomenal. I mean, The Truman Show. When he's allowed to go to these places, he's. I've always been of the mind that the greatest comedic actors are actually the greatest dramatic actors.
Mhm.
And there's so many on the list. I mean, obviously Robin Williams, and there's so many. Jack Lemmon. Um,
Mhm.
anyway, but yeah, he took it to a place here, and I think so much of it is just I don't I don't know how much of the script looked the way that it did, when it came out this way, but I think the story is just so relatable to anybody who's ever felt connected or lost. It's all there. So I feel like they saw the script, and they saw this story as actors, and were like, you don't have to force it, you just have to live in it.
They actually said that they let Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet ad-lib quite a bit, just to talk back and forth about past relationships and things like that during a lot of these sequences, which was really kind of cool. And a year before they started shooting this movie, Jim Carrey actually went through a breakup with, as they say, an unspecified woman, and um, and that's exactly what it says. Um, and Gondry had asked him to kind of, he saw that he was in such an emotional state at the time that it was, quote, so beautiful and so broken that he asked him to stay that way for a year for
Jesus.
the movie. And in the documentary, Jim and Andy that he did for Netflix, he said, that's how fucked up this business is, and yeah, it's kind of crazy that, and like you said, but when he can go to those places, it's just incredible. And that's why he's always been one of my favorite actors of all time, because he can just, if he's allowed to go to those places, he does incredible things. Like, and I know the number 23 was always one of my favorites. Everyone's like, why that movie? I'm like, he's incredible in it. I love that
Well,
movie.
his contrast of performance in that movie is
Such a
wild, for
contrast.
sure.
It's insane. It's so different, and I do, and it's same with this movie. I just loved how he was in this movie. It was great. So,
And their balance off each other. I mean, like, she is so
Mhm.
extraordinary and such a
Oh my god.
powerhouse, and you need them to have that dichotomy. You need him to be a
Mhm.
little bit more mousy, and her to have this, like, she's almost like a bull in a china shop, you
Yep.
know, but, like, in the most attractive way, like
Exactly.
everything about her chaos is intoxicating. So
Mhm.
you understand why someone like Joel would be so enveloped by this idea, even if it's not necessarily perfect for him.
Mhm. Yep. Exactly. Hey Ben, what do you think about the movie?
Oh, I've got some thoughts about the movie.
Let me tell you. Tell me your
No,
thoughts.
I thought it was fantastic. I mean, my history with this movie is that I saw maybe half of it a very long time ago. I was watching it with some friends. They decided they wanted to turn it off. We must have been like probably like
I don't
19
get
and
it.
20.
Yeah.
That was pretty much
It's not a
that.
good movie to me until my friends say, "Turn that shit off."
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So it's exactly that moment. And then all of the last 2 weeks, it's been me just trying to get access to this movie. It was
No
not until
way.
yesterday
Pretty
that I
much.
managed to find a way to do it. But I was just like, does someone not want me to do this? Has someone erased my memory that this movie actually exists? But no, actually going back and seeing it and actually seeing the ending for the first time, because you were all talking about, hey, look, let's get this out for Valentine's Day. It'd be a great one to do for that. And I'm thinking, really? I've seen half this movie. It's devastating. But actually seeing that ending and actually seeing it's that kind of sweet moment at the end where, like, so especially when they're sort of listening to those recordings of themselves and actually kind of airing everything out there in the open and realizing and piecing together what's happening, but still, having that hope for the future that, let's actually give this a go again is what I kind of took away from that. But everything from, like I say, just the acting, like you've all touched on, like serious Jim Carrey is probably my favorite Jim Carrey. Like I love Truman Show, like you mentioned, and all the ones you mentioned before as well. It's such an acting powerhouse, and the entire cast are just so good. But everything from like even the score, how it's kind of playful and upbeat, but actually still unnerving. It's kind of
Yeah.
just it's unreal. So no, I absolutely loved it, and just I actually love the structure and the way they actually recorded it because it makes like obviously not sense the first time around, but having almost piecing it together myself, where I had the first part and then have come back and now watched it again. It does make a lot of sense on sort of second viewing. So no, I really enjoyed and just appreciate it as a whole. But it's just so relatable every step of the way. The only probably one slight critique that I'd give it, it's not really a critique, but it's just something I want to see more of, is just more happy moments with Clementine and Joel. Just because the moments that we do see where they are happy, and obviously where we get those moments where it's Clem and his memory, sort of they're going through each of the memories and you get some nice sweet moments there. It kind of makes you want to see what that relationship was actually like when they were together the first time around, those happier moments, because we don't get as much of that as I probably would have liked. But the movie's just perfect for the most part. I just absolutely thought it was an absolute masterpiece. So yeah.
I feel like it's
Funny thing.
Oh, sorry. No, you, Al.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I was just gonna say I've kind of firmly held on to the thought that, like, for me it might be the most romantic film ever made, because it's not about the flowery parts of it. It's about the reality of like it, loving someone is everything. It's all the stuff, and it so delicately touches on that balance of like, I mean, we'll get to the end, but there's that moment at the end, when like the house is collapsing with them inside, and it's like the greatest, to me, that's like one of the greatest moments in cinema. Sorry, Al, you were going to say something.
Oh, I was just going to say that Charlie Kaufman has said that he realized he was writing love stories based on movies he's seen, and then said, I want to write from what I know, from my experience. And that's where like going all the way and like showing all parts of the relationship came from. Because it's funny that someone like him, even when he's writing, he'll go to like what he knows from movies as opposed to experience. It's just very fascinating. And to be able to realize that and be like, no, I'm not writing it this way this time. Nope.
Yeah, he's such a fascinating writer. Every time I see one of his films, I feel like I need to like take a step back before I even start to analyze it, because there's so much to unpack. Have you ever seen Synecdoche, New York?
I've not, but I really want to.
It might be the hardest movie I've ever sat through, but it's like you have to see it, Like the performances, everything's incredible, but like I don't know if I like it, and it's amazing. It's weird, like it's one of those things. He's just
that's how I feel about being John Malkovich.
Yeah, no, it has that same. You feel so uneasy about everything, but you're like, this is such an extraordinary experience, and
Absolutely.
This to me, I think, is his best work, hands down. I think it's just it's so real, it's so relatable, and I mean, like, even the weird way that like the contrast of humor, how it's really sad and really funny at the same time. Like And it works so well with the ADR that they do for, like, Joel being like, I ditch work today. And you just see him like booking it, like it's that kind of stuff that just you can't help but laugh. And because you
Mhm.
know that feeling, or you're like, and you know that both feelings are real.
A lot of that quirkiness also is from Gondry's
Oh no,
shooting.
for sure. It's just
And
that perfect marriage of everything.
yes, just placing Michel Gondry as a director for this is the genius part of it. I feel like if I can't imagine any other director doing it.
I'm very much, I think it's interesting, both Gondry and Charlie Kaufman, I think they're the kinds of guys who need to collaborate instead of work to them like by themselves. Like I don't want to see a Charlie Kaufman directed and written film. I want to see,
Right.
and I don't want to see Michel Gondry go off and write his own thing either. Like I want they're each so good at what they do in their own weird ways, and when you put the pieces together, that's where something truly insanely magical happens. And like that's why I
Absolutely.
think this movie's so potent, because everyone is just firing off.
Exactly. I agree.
Really is. Where am I going here?
I still just have no idea how someone even writes this movie. It's just such a masterclass in writing it. Like just
Really,
those moments where, like, even just the the damage to the car, and when you actually see how that actually happened, and it wasn't the
Right.
person that hit him next to him, and it's just like what, just mind blowing. It's just
I wonder how much of the timeline was written like linearly, and then they kind of
yeah.
like went back and broke it up and stuff. Because I'm sure that the script went through a lot of different iterations. Um, but it could also be that kind of thing where the script could have been written in a linear fashion, and they shot it in a way where they could just edit it and put the pieces where they wanted, knowing like, oh well, this will lead to this, or I don't know. But it's like the what I love about how this movie works is, especially in the 2000s, like we were surrounded by like quirky movies, and
Mhm.
a lot of quirky movies were like just like they were just weird. Like they, and some of them were great, and some of them were just like, you're like, I see you're just making these choices to like be like an indie movie.
Mm.
And this movie was like the king of weird, but everything has purpose and everything works, and it's not like you're not watching it and going like, oh, they're just like trying to, play with time or like throw me, like make me not understand what's happening. It's all feeding you to get you to an emotional space. And like that, the conversation when they have, because it happens twice, I think, when they have the conversation first in the hallway, and she's explaining why it's never going to work. And instead of him being like, you're right, it's never going to work, she's like, because I'm going to be like this and this and this. And he just goes, okay. And
Mm.
and then it goes back again to when the house is falling apart and all this stuff, and it's just we've been through everything, and she says it all again, and he just looks at her, and it's like the most beautiful like line in the whole movie. It's just one word, but he says it again. He just goes, okay. And she looks at him and she goes, okay. And they just kind of like, that moment to me is like everything, because it's that realization of fuck it, like we don't know if it's going to work, if it's perfect, if it's not, but it's worth it.
Yep. Exactly.
It might be one of the most well acted moments in cinema. Like you said, it's so
perfect.
subtle, but Jim Carrey's delivery, especially in that hallway, is just perfect.
Really is. It's the same with when they're in the house and he's like, and then I left, and she goes, but what if you didn't?
That's
And
the moment. Yeah.
I just it's perfect. I love it. It's just great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the moment. It's devastating.
Yeah.
In a
It
beautiful
really
way.
And it's the
Mm.
same with and to go back to some of that, like with even the quirkiness and things like that, the continuity issues, which everyone loves pointing out continuity issues in movies. I love how they just threw things into this movie. Like one of the things they did when they were working on him at night, and they had this overhead shot of him, and they're looking down. You see this bunch of wires next to his bed that's all unplugged. And it's when they're trying to fix it because something's gone wrong, but they leave them all unplugged there on purpose. And everyone's like, but they're not plugged in. It's like, no, they're not supposed to be plugged in because everything's going wrong. I just love those little things in this movie that are supposed to be like that, but everyone thinks they're pointing out things that are wrong. It's just these little quirky bits in here that are thrown in that are just perfect, but not at the same time. And it's all just tied into the bigger picture of the movie. And then you have Patrick down there messing with everything, trying to get everything to work and fiddle with it all when they almost fry his brain and then, get it
Patrick, baby boy.
baby boy. Exactly.
I love also like the idea that this really sensitive procedure is done by like these knuckleheads who just like roll up like and like like they're just like drinking beer and it's like and you imagine this is how they do it for anyone. So it's like it's just so funny to think of like how insensitive, and you wonder like have these guys been doing it for a long time where like they started really like cordial and respectful and then realized like we were just we're just used to this, or it's so fascinating.
You just know they've had a party at someone's house when they're unconscious, right?
Yeah, exactly.
An all-out rager somewhere along the lines.
Yeah.
The whole concept is just so cool because I know they did talk. I read some of the facts. One of them was that they were talking about the fact that at one point they were going to set it, I think it was 50 years in the future, but I'm kind of glad they didn't, and they just sort of kept to that more realistic tone of just current day because it doesn't seem that far flung, and I know there's a lot of stuff going on even.
Well, it's the only thing about it that seems outlandish is this procedure. Everything else seems like just what we know is life, right?
Absolutely. And the way they do it, it still feels very real and grounded in that world.
Absolutely. It's such a that's like such a triumph of the film is that you can believe it, because like I think when films set up like the rules and then a lot of films will break their own rules because they're like, oh, well, we want to do this thing, and that's the stuff that will subconsciously take you out of an experience. And for this movie to have something that like so doesn't sit in nature to fit perfectly and for us to not have a knee-jerk reaction to it is like such a masterclass of storytelling. And I think so much of it is just they don't over sci-fi it. They just push it enough and they give you way more about the emotional context than the technical jargon. And I think if they like pushed more into the sci-fi, it would have been a disaster.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
It's just a plot device, more or less. And
exactly.
Yeah.
You kind of skirt over the like how does it work of it all because you don't care. You just understand that it does, and you're way more concerned about like, are they going to remember each other? Are they going to find each other? Is this,
Yep.
would I do this?
Exactly. Can they hide in his memory long enough until morning? Is this all going to work out for them? Like, is it going to happen? And it really is. And even throughout when you're dealing with the folks from Lacuna, it's that expired at the beginning of the year, and you're just more concerned with the relationships of those folks than you are with anything else that has to do with that company.
You get that person that wants to have, was it the third one in like a really short space of time? You're like, what happened to you?
Yeah.
I noticed when I was watching it for the last night, I watched it again just to be like, all right, I'm gonna watch it one more time. The one lady who's sitting there with the dog dishes, the dog dish says Buster, which is my dog's name. I just was like, oh
no.
I think that like that moment is so, it hurts so much to like, it's like the waiting room is such a sad idea.
Very sad. It is very sad. But you have Mary, who is you just think she's this sweet girl who's trying to have a relationship with the guy who's erasing people's memories and reciting off these quotes. And you have Patrick, the creepy guy, stealing panties from patients, and the doctor who's just trying to make his way in life. And then you realize that, well, maybe there's something else going on with all these guys when Mary decides she really has a thing for him, and then you find out that her memory was once erased too, and all the other things that go along with that. So, I mean, even when you find out all of that stuff towards the end, and kind of that's how we realize that, that's how Joel and Clementine find out that they had their memories erased, and kind of brings us to the big moment at the end of the movie. It really kind of brings it full circle.
I also love the very last shot of the film. Because I remember the first time I saw it, I don't think I saw it as a positive. I think I almost saw it as like they were just stuck in this time loop of like, kind of never-ending sadness and erasure. But I think I've since, like the scene obviously doesn't change. It is very much that kind of loop idea. But in my mind, I really now see it as like it's the idea of intention and effort and trying to better yourself and trying to listen more. It's like every time like you make a mistake, you're like, well, I don't want to make that mistake again. So now I'm going to be better. I'm going to like, work on the next thing. I'm going to listen more. I'm going to be more attentive, whatever it is. So I kind of like the idea that it's like every chance is like an evolution.
I
Yeah, it's
totally
definitely,
agree.
definitely seems hopeful. Yeah.
Yep.
So you go.
The first time I watched it, I just took all the negative aspects of it in. And the more I watched it, the more I realized and saw things differently. I think that also plays the reason for that is because it starts off with all the bad memories,
Right.
and then he slowly starts remembering the good memories as he's going back on his decision to erase her. So it's a weird way of just, there's a lot of very cool repeat viewings you can have with this. Absolutely.
And you side with them both at different times too, like in the relationship. It's so interesting where like you'll find yourself like judging either of them, like from your own perspective of what,
It's really cool. It's fascinating.
Ben, were you going to say something?
No, I'm all good. Sorry. It's like, I've erased it from my memory. But how about David Cross in this? Dude, we don't get him for very long.
He's
good. So good.
He's always great. And I love to like the defeated way he hands off the card. It's so good. It's just he's like the perfect best bud.
He is. He's great. After she dumps the laundry in his lap and he's that's fantastic. It is great. All right. Well, let's go and talk about something a little more fun for just a moment. And after one of my favorite lines in this movie, and I'm just gonna like show off my hair for a second here because I did just do it last week. I apply my personality in a paste. Let's talk about Clementine's hair for a second because my hair never stays the same color for probably more than a month at a time. So I just want to talk about what's your favorite color of Clementine's hair. So I'm going to just start with mine. I think that Red Menace, I believe, the one that we get kind of towards the end, that reddish orange color that she does, I think is probably my favorite out of all of the colors that she does in this movie. And I think, I don't know, it might be personal preference just because I really love that color because I've done that quite a few times. But I think that's going to be my pick for her favorite color. Ben, what do you think?
I have a slight color deficiency, but
that's
amazing.
I am colorblind, but
like
I believe exactly they're all great. I would say probably the red for me. I could definitely tell the difference between red and blue, so I'm pretty sure that was red.
Okay, we'll go with red for Ben too, since he's colorblind. Ryan, how about you? What's your favorite color of Clementine's hair?
It's tough because I liked the weird, like when he sees her in the bookstore, and it's like that weird two-tone like greenish blue. There's something about like the chaos of it that feels very Clem to me that I don't know. It's like it's probably not the nicest of all the color choices, but there's something about that I like.
It's a good color. I like that one too. It's good. Al, how about you?
I like what she referred to as Agent Orange when it starts matching her sweatshirt for sure.
When he calls her Clementine or Tangerine.
Yeah, Tangerine. Yeah,
that is a great color. I love that color too. It's fantastic. They're just so great. I love all.
I kind of feel creepy when you say that now because of that whole Patrick scene. It's so disturbing. He's trying to use his nickname for her. That's just
weird.
Stealing her panties.
It's weird. It's weird. I know.
That's definitely weird.
It is. But it's a good hair color. Okay, Ben. It's a good hair color.
It is a great hair color.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right. I got this like pinky peach thing kicking right now, so I'm happy.
It's rad.
Sorry, that's my favorite hair color. There we go.
It's your favorite hair color.
Yeah.
My faded out hair color is your favorite hair color. We'll go with it. All right. So let's talk about there's some really good lines in this one, but let's talk about Mary and her decision. So she has this quote in this movie that is the Alexander Pope, or she likes to call him Pope Alexander. How happy is the blameless vessel's lot, the world forgetting by the world forgot. Eternal said her and him had a relationship from his wife, which is kind of a crazy moment in the movie. I know the first time I saw this movie, this was not one that I had expected.
It's so upsetting.
It is it's heartbreaking. I think this is probably one of the most shocking moments of the entire movie, honestly.
Well, it shows the danger and the power of how so much can be taken advantage of by what you think is seemingly like an act that's going to make your life easier.
It does.
And instead it is so much messier.
And listening to the tape when she goes to his office and kind of tears up everything to try to find her file is absolutely it's heartbreaking. But she decides that she is going to take all the files. She quits her job and takes all the files, and she's going to send out all of the patient files to everyone who's had their memories erased to kind of let them know what's been going on. So, in Mary's position, Al, what do you think you would do?
I wouldn't do what she did, because that would be a lot of
like that's just way too much postage. I don't have the time.
Right?
exactly what it is.
That's a lot of work.
All these addresses. Yeah, like
I see why she did that, because they weren't supposed to do like you were saying, Ryan. It gets pretty crazy the result of what they're doing. So I can totally see why she did that, and I agree with her decision. To be honest, I'm just now realizing that.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot, I feel like, and like you said, I don't know, postage and time aside, I feel like, I mean,
it's an emotion that like we can't fully comprehend,
exactly,
you know, because like it's
without being in that position.
yeah, like it's something so far past our comprehension of understanding what it's really like. And I the only thing that I can really like link to it is like it's like akin to finding out like you're a part of some nefarious operation, and it's like, you know, it's that choice of, is the right thing here freeing people from their, you know, from this false reality, or are some of these people truly like better off because of it, you know, like so that's the internal conflict I feel like that I would have.
Yeah.
Even with like I think so much of it is like it's the personal hurt and realization of like how much have I not been aware of, and that initial reaction can make you very like fuck everyone, burn the whole thing down, you know. So like I can understand for sure where she's coming from.
Yep, I would just done with all of you folks here, and I'm gonna get rid of everything you've built because you erased my memory, and I'm very upset with you right now.
She could have worded it slightly better, eh?
Could have worded it slightly better.
Could have been like, you wanted this, like, just a heads up, you did want this memory deleted, but here's this if you want to look into it. But
Yeah.
Well, that's the element of it just being an emotional person and not a, you know, she's not a medical professional in that moment. She's an erratically emotional person who's not necessarily thinking clearly.
Exactly.
Who has also just been through this.
Right.
Yeah.
So
there's clearly, even when they're doing it, there's no bedside manner.
Yeah, right. It's not the lady who's asking to have it done for the third time this month, you know.
I hope she gets a discount. Yeah.
Right. Did they have one of those punch cards, you know?
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think they're like, actually that'll be $200, and we told you about that last week?
Well, but that's the thing is, I think that they can't, right? They can't tell her, so like like that's where that becomes that abuse of power of like, you know, they're gonna keep taking the money, they're gonna keep doing the job, and you get to a certain point where all of the populace is just a void.
Because I guess they did tell her you can't have your third one, so she obviously knows she's had it erased before. So
Oh
Might be
yeah,
a little different situation
that is
than
an
Joel, I
interesting.
guess.
That is an interesting thing, actually.
But I guess some people they may want maybe they ask you at the start, do you want to actually know if you've had a memory erased? And
Maybe, and maybe it's like they don't get into specifics or something.
yeah,
Yeah. But then
That's really
Joel and
getting heady in
Clementine,
the science.
yeah. Joel and Clementine do find out about their memories being erased, and it kind of does lead them to, decide to try again, which, I mean, I guess that's a positive. So
exactly.
hopefully some other people find some positives in that.
Well, it's that thing where it's like, in their case, it's based off of a
Yeah,
relationship. Some people it could be abusive stuff. Some people it could.
exactly.
You never know what the
Yeah,
scenario could be,
Mm.
which makes it all the more complicated, obviously. But
very sticky situation.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that in itself would be a really fascinating film. But I don't know how you would like control a narrative around that. I think focusing it
Yeah.
on a relationship like this makes it so palpable.
Yeah. Much easier. Hmm. All right. Well, I know one of my favorite lines in this movie, at least the one that I think I gravitate towards the most here, is one from Clementine that is, but I'm just a fucked up girl who's looking for my own peace of mind. Don't assign me yours. So I want to talk about some other favorite lines. Ben, you have any favorite lines from the movie you want to talk about?
Yeah, I quite like the line at the start where it's Joel and Clementine talking, and they're talking about that he's not a stalker. It's that line from Joel where, really? There's a stalker book? I've got to read that one. Just because it kind of sets up their relationship so well. Like that's, I think Ryan, you mentioned it earlier. There is actually some really good subtle humor in this throughout the whole thing.
It's a very fun movie.
It's a sweet
Yeah,
moment. I love
absolutely.
it.
And I just love how it just kind of sets up that's like I said, like we talked about earlier. That's probably what it's like for them in those sweet moments when they do have that sort of fun back and forth. So that's probably one of my favorite lines. Yeah.
Mhm. How about you, Ryan? Anything fun? Any good lines that you really like in this movie?
Oh, for sure. My absolute well, first my non-favorite line that is a line that everybody loves in this movie
Mhm.
is Santa's overrated because it's just such a funny, like obtuse
Mm.
idea.
Mhm.
But my favorite actual line, this movie is so profound, man. Constantly talking isn't necessarily communicating.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That
Great.
is the ultimate. I know for me personally, and I'm sure you guys are like this too to some degree. When you're with somebody, whether it's a relationship or a family member or a friend or whatever, like you can be with a person and literally like not talk to them. Like you could just be in a room with someone. You could both be doing other stuff, whatever, but you feel so at peace and like so whole just being with each other. And I think that like so much of relationship is not always, it's not about just constantly like vocalizing your feelings to each other. It's being with each other and being in each other, like not in that, not in that way, in each other's souls, and that idea that like to solve something you have to constantly talk and talk and talk and talk in circles. Like that's not where the healing
Mhm.
comes from. And I think that, a lot of their arguments kind of came from like almost over communicating in the wrong ways.
Yeah, I totally agree. Absolutely. Al, how about you?
That was the line that I picked.
Ah,
So, but I'm also going to bring up a different movie that pretty much says the same thing. I remember in Pulp Fiction, Uma Thurman's character says, "You know, you have someone special when you can just shut the fuck up and enjoy the silence."
yeah,
Mhm.
So that's that
Good,
again.
good line. Good line.
Different movie, but yeah.
That's all right.
we're
I'll
friends.
allow it. I'll allow it. Good stuff. All right. Well, let's start wrapping it up with just some final thoughts about the movie. You know what, Ryan? I'm going to kick it off to you with some final thoughts.
Oh man, this movie is truly flawless. It makes me, what's amazing is like I time travel. Like I feel there's a nostalgia when I watch the film and it takes me back to that time when I first saw it and I remember those feelings. The movie gets me very emotional in like really odd scenes too where it's like stuff that isn't necessarily like a somber moment, but I just feel so much about the idea of love and possibility and human connection. And I really think that it is such a powerful love letter to the perseverance of the human soul, and how much if we truly like look into ourselves, we can solve a lot of these problems that we tend to think are just kind of like coming from the outside. And I do want to touch upon one of my favorite like little moments that just always stuck with me when they're on the ice, which is such like such a dangerous date, but it's so
Really.
adorable.
Yeah.
But I love when they're like laying down. It's that classic shot, and he's
Mhm.
got his hands in his pockets, and he's pointing out was it Ursa Minor or Ursa Major,
Mm.
whatever the constellation is, and he's like,
Yeah.
swoop and across, and
Mhm.
every time he does it, he puts his hand back in his pocket, and then she's like, "What?" And then he like wiggles it out and explains again, and then like he puts it back in his pocket, and then like it's like this kind of like dance where like because he's fucking freezing, and it's this beautiful thing where it's like, and they're so smushed together, and like all the moments of them, their relationship in this movie felt so real. Their meeting on the train, or whenever that meeting, however many meetings it was, like it's just so pure.
Mhm.
I love everything about this film.
Yeah. That's my the moment in this movie that I love so much is when they're in the house and she's trying to tell him to take her to a place where she doesn't belong to hide him, and they're sitting on the couch, and it starts raining in the house where they start singing the song. It starts raining in the house, and I that moment, that shot in that scene is probably my favorite shot in this movie. And she puts the book on her head and just sits there, and I don't know
Yeah.
what it is about that scene. It's just that one. It's something about it. It just always makes me smile. I just
Well,
that's
the whole
one.
sequence of him like as a child,
Yep.
and the way that they and by the way, that they shot that scene. I'm pretty sure they shot that scene like practically, and it's just like a
Mhm.
weird angling that
Mhm.
they did.
It's all practical in camera stuff. Yeah.
Yep. They
Completely
all did
insane.
in-camera stuff in this movie. It was great.
Insane.
Fantastic.
Yeah, they do so much with this movie where you never feel like there are parts that are straight up like Alice in Wonderland, and it
Mhm.
doesn't feel like you're watching that at the same time. Like all of it just funnels into this one narrative that you so are just like hooked into.
It's so great. It's awesome. How about you, Ben?
Yeah, no, on the same vein, I think the thing that impresses me the most is the story is so deep and there's so much to actually think about. Whether it's like say just their relationship or even things like, the deeper meaning of things where obviously with Clementine actually having her memory completely erased, and then obviously just having some not necessarily memories, but obviously strong connections to things that had happened to the point where she's going out with Stan, I believe his name is, right? Where that's having obviously some resonance to her, some of the things that he's doing. It's obviously pulling from something that she knows has happened, but she doesn't have that memory. So, just that deeper conversation about what that actually means. But yeah, for the thing for me, I think that impresses me the most is those moments as you're sort of going through and rewatching it. Like Ryan said, that lake scene, like he talks about the fact that he doesn't know any constellations. Is that because he's actually talked about the constellations with her before, and that was actually raised previously,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's just so impressive to me, and no, I absolutely love it. And it's just the whole thing is just so relatable, and considering the technology and things that are actually used, it's just so grounded. But it's just kind of a fun journey as well, like going through his memories and just yeah, no, I just absolutely loved it.
It's just like when she tells him, no, don't make fun of my name or no jokes about my name. And he forgets the jokes about her name the first time through.
Yeah,
And as we see
the
going through,
Huckleberry or Huckleberry.
Yeah.
Huckleberry Hound, he does actually know that, but he had his memory erased. So he forgets it the first time through.
Mm.
And yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing that you point that out. So that's
Now,
pretty
did
cool.
you see have you seen the deleted scenes with, I believe it's Naomi, his ex? Have you seen that?
No, actually, I've never watched the deleted scenes.
Because it's
I
kind of interesting.
I
Oh,
think I have vaguely, but I this is like years ago, so I have to go back
oh,
and look.
Mm.
yeah, I've never watched.
Essentially, that they almost seem like the same kind of person, and I'd imagine
Wow.
that's probably why it works so well. Obviously,
Hmm.
with obviously everything with Clementine is because they're opposites
Interesting.
attracts things. They're so similar. It's a pretty short scene, but it's funny at the end. It's just right before he goes to that beach party without her, and she's writing a
Yeah.
novel of some kind, and she actually tells him to, "Hey, go get laid." Just kidding.
That's
um,
funny. Oh my
but it's kind of
god.
interesting. I could kind of see why they
Wow.
left it out because that sort of not knowing who she is, but obviously referencing in the movie is kind of probably
Yeah.
a better decision. But it's kind of interesting actually going back and watching that.
That's pretty interesting. That is cool. Awesome. How about you, Al?
I love this movie. You guys have said everything already, but just the fact that it does the relationship and like what goes on, the things that you sort of keep in your head about like the things that you say to your partner and the things that your partner says to you, and it's just like this is such a great way of like having both parties go into their weird made up sort of world of their minds and just like experience those moments with each other, even if it's not exactly factually that, but like still just being able to see it in that way is amazing, fascinating to me. I love it.
It really is. It's such a great movie, and like I said, I mean, I know y'all are probably sick of hearing me say this is my favorite movie of all time, but I will never get tired of watching this movie. I know it was kind of touched on it earlier. Is this movie came out at a time in 2004, so actually this movie came out right after I went through a breakup, which is probably why I initially gravitated toward it in the beginning. This guy actually left for the Navy and didn't tell me that he was leaving. So, man, erasing him from my memory would have been the perfect cure at the time. I went a different route and just left him nasty voicemail, but you know, it all kind of evened out. But it was definitely it wasn't that nasty. I just had a couple.
I mean,
drinks
it's valid.
like, you know, why'd you leave and not tell me?
That's
You know,
pretty
it's just a
valid.
question. But yeah, it definitely came out at a time when I needed it most, and I think that's kind of why it stuck. And I mean, I don't think I've watched any other movie more than I've watched this one, and you know, and that's without watching it the 5 times I watched it this past week to prepare for it. So yeah, I there's not enough good things I can say, and I will always give this a 10 out of 10 stars for this movie. So that
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's perfect. It really is.
It is. This movie to me is going to be like that Love Actually movie. To me, you're perfect. And that's what I've got for this one. So awesome. Well, that sounds great. Guys, do you have anything else to add?
I'm never going to erase this moment.
Oh,
Thank you guys so much for having me. This is like to get to hang with you guys and to celebrate a movie that no matter how many people enjoy needs to be more celebrated is a pleasure.
I absolutely agree. Well, Ryan,
Where can people find you, Ryan?
absolutely.
The easiest place I'm most active on Twitter, so at Ryan Colt Levy, my full name, and you can see me just make a total fool out of myself.
You're
Yeah, right.
I you know, I started following you after these guys introduced me to you, and your Twitter has been phenomenal for me every day. Everyone, please go follow him. It's great.
Such a positive place, you know, that
Such a
timeline.
great,
Love it.
positive place. I love it. It's been awesome. So, y'all know where you can find me, Ambelina, on Twitter, and obviously the oupod.com with the other boys. Al, you?
I'm Al Tribesman on everything, but check out the oupod.com and simplysassyvids.com.
Yeah, don't forget the Simply Sassy Boys. Benjamin?
Yes, the oupod.com. We review movies, TV shows, have fun sports shows, all sorts. So go and check it out, the oupod.com. And yes, Simply Sassy, we've got some great stuff happening over there. We've got a fun new project in the works happening very soon. We have great review shows. You can even check out the Ryan Colt Levy episode of Out of Our League, right, Ryan?
Oh my gosh.
One of the great episodes. Lots of fun stuff over there. You can find me at twitch.tv/pleasebeexcited and at pleasebeexcited on Twitter. Yeah.
Find Ben everywhere.
Oh my God, he's behind me.
I know, it's crazy.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for doing this movie with me today. I appreciate you all so much. And until next time, keep it unofficial.